Hello, hello.
Okay, who's gonna start? Hello and hello. I don't know. It's stupid to say good morning, good evening. I don't know what time of day it is at you, but it's New Year. It was also last time, but this time we're going to talk about some things that we expect to happen in 2025.
Yes, we're trying to look into our magic crystal balls and see what 2025 will be like. I
You
expect
have
that
magic
we'll,
crystal balls. You
yes,
don't have one.
at
You
least
have multiple of
at
them.
least
Okay.
four for different times of the year.
Okay, this is going to be an interesting conversation. I didn't expect that. I see you are prepared completely. I'll just say what is on my mind. Okay, so please do start. What is on first of those crystal balls
I was
that you
referring
see?
to yours and mine, Darko. I think
You said you have four of them. I have none. I don't
now I
know.
have. I have a collection. I have to say, it's very
Oh,
nice as decoration, if nothing else. I completely expect us to make a lot of mistakes because it would be quite boring actually to know what's going to happen and be fully prepared. So I do hope that there are some surprises in store for us. But
oh, you
there,
mean mistakes in these trends that we're going to reveal, or
yes.
mistakes during this show?
Oh, the mistakes during the show are a normal thing at this point, but mistakes in our predictions, I do hope that we won't be completely right because that would mean that everything's very predictable and that's no fun. Before we start with talking about what might happen in 2025, I would like all of you, if there's any of you at this moment that are watching, to pitch in with your respective industries. We are very curious about what you think is going to happen in 2025 or what you've decided to work on in 2025, because it gives us some information and a path to move forward. So please pitch in if you can.
Yes.
Well, what I would start with is the big buzzword of 2024, and that was AI. Obviously, it was everywhere. Every conference, 80% of LinkedIn posts. We chatted about it in the audio show. We talked about it here. People mention it quite a
Mm-hmm.
lot. In education, especially, it's kind of divisive. People are worried about it, people are excited about it, and that's very, very likely to continue in 2025. So we're definitely going to be dealing with more of that.
Mm-hmm.
As an
So it's
educator,
going to be it's going to escalate a bit.
um, escalate. It's going to continue and it's going to be more intensive in some ways, but I think it's also going to die down in some other ways. I think that we're going to move past, at least I hope that we're going to move past some talking points, but we'll see. We'll see. This is the most unpredictable one, I'd say. So it'll be
Mm-hmm.
very interesting to see how it develops. Um, I think it's tied for me. The most important bit that it's tied with is personalization. That's definitely going to be a big buzzword in education and continue to be, and it deserves to be so. For me, it's very interesting because obviously I work with adults with different needs, small groups, and one on one. So to personalize their learning is very important for me. And AI has been helping
You,
me with that
yeah, I meant to
because
ask you with AI personalization. Okay.
yes, AI helps. Like for instance, I can tell you about a lesson I had this morning where we were practicing a job interview with in the hospitality industry, and it was about a head chef. I really know very little about this industry, so asking AI to think of some scenarios that could happen, where I could ask an interviewee, what would you do in this situation? It helps a lot because it gives you a pretty realistic scenario that you can use or different ones that you can pick from and say, oh, okay, this is something that I wouldn't have thought about because I'm not well acquainted with what happens in this regard.
Mm-hmm. Okay. It
So
sounds, as soon as you said chef, it started to be interesting for me. So I'd
I
ask you for
know.
some recipes.
I know. That's why I mentioned it. I knew that it would make you happy.
Yeah, it probably wouldn't matter much in a job interview, but from my selfish reasons, so I could cook better. I don't know.
Yeah. Why not? I'm very curious for the visual industry because I know it's very controversial as it is in education. What are your thoughts on what's going to happen with photography and AI in 2025?
Oh, yeah. Now you're putting words in my mouth. So AI should be also mentioned in photography trends for
Hmm.
2025. Well, okay, it sure is going to, as everything else in photography. We'll see much less AI generated photography, I'd say. From what I've seen, also by the end of 2024, that things started to slow down a little bit, and people started to be just it was just too polished with this AI. So photographs that were just created with AI out of nothing. So I don't know if you can call them photographs, images, whatever. Just started to be so polished that you see trend like it was a couple of years ago when you had it on Instagram and everything looked so completely polished and everything looked so beautiful that you knew it was not realistic. And after that, TikTok came and everything started to be more realistic. And in also on Instagram on Reels, you saw that this trend to towards a more realistic imagery or video. So I'd say this is going to be a little bit just taken back, this AI generated images at least. But in photography and also in videography, AI is going to have still quite a big role in editing, so in post production. You see some new things coming up every day, and it really helps with different things when you edit photographs and video. It makes things much more faster, so you can deliver the results much faster. But what is has not yet been so much used, I'd say it's going to be used much more in 2025. It's pre-production. So planning of the shoots, maybe creating some mood boards. So I don't see that much of it during the last few years, and this is going to be much more utilized in the next in this year.
Okay. Oh, that's great. I see some parallels with education there because I think for us in lesson planning is where it's most useful at this point, especially for us
Mm-hmm.
freelancers when we have highly personalized courses to prepare to have even a thinking partner because it can be a lonely process. You know, how could I approach this? These are my students' needs. And if you have a very well made needs analysis, then I think you can get a lot from AI as a thinking partner as to what you can do and how you can also gamify the experience. And I think gamification is going to be one of those other trends that will continue into 2025. People need more interactivity. There's a lot of passive content that they go through on a daily basis. I think everyone's complaining about not people not reading enough, but I think they're reading a lot to the point that everyone's a bit fatigued by all the information that they see out there, social media, texts, emails, everything. So they need to interact more with this content, and I think this will be more important in 2025.
So they don't read books anymore, but they do read or listen to or view other content.
Yes,
So
and a
they
lot of it.
they have input of information, maybe input overload.
Yes, Yes, and I see that. I see that a lot because I have some students who are avid readers who are really passionate about it who can't concentrate anymore because of the amount of information that they're exposed to. And I think this kind of information decluttering, more digital detoxes and retreats and things like that, I think that's going to continue being a thing in 2025 because we all feel the effects of how much information we're exposed to.
Yeah, and I feel this also much more with what you said about trends in using AI. So it's not, I'd say people just evolved from using this, okay, create this content from me, just to start being my thought partner and help me with this, and I'll lead the way, but you just be there and help me with it. So
Yes.
it's more used like this, and it's going to
Um,
be more used like this.
I hope so. And I think people are becoming more digitally literate. I think it's a slow process. I think that we'll be talking about this for years to come about, using our critical thinking as the two big words that have always been important in education that will continue being important, but we'll have to think about different ways of practicing this in an age of AI, and it's going to continue being an issue where, us not having enough time. I would say people say laziness is the issue, but I'd say not having enough time for a lot of people. So utilizing it in a way that's less critical and less picky about the output is going to continue being something that's important, and that's an issue that we need to encourage each other to do.
Yes. So more interaction with AI in terms of there and back, just talking with it, let's say, and cooperating with it.
Yes, and I think more interaction in general, not just with AI. More interaction with content, rather than passive acceptance or just scrolling through things, or within the education system, less sitting there quietly and listening, and more activity, more discussion, more engagement, because this is the only way to actually learn something in this context of information overload.
Yeah, and this is also what we are looking for. And why are there no comments yet? So perhaps they are trying to listen to what you have to say from these four crystal balls, and so
Maybe.
so they don't have
Wait,
they don't have
let
ahead
me.
of you. But we would really love to hear also from you if you're at the moment listening to us and viewing us. What are your thoughts? What is going to happen in 2025, and also from this what we already said. Is it does it look like this is going to happen, or are you saying okay, no, this is just stupid? It's not going to happen anymore. Anyway.
Yeah, I'm very curious. I know you have thoughts on this because everybody does. So please share them if you can. I'm just checking if we're live to make sure. It seems that we are. So people are
We
just a bit
don't even
asleep.
need to check. I don't think. I think we are live, but who cares?
Yeah.
We just having a conversation anyway. But we hope somebody else will join us with comments.
Yeah,
Okay,
it would be
so
useful to be live to get those comments, I think. It would be nice.
I can produce some additional comments if you want.
Go for it. We can ask
Okay,
Claude
so
AI.
yeah, right. We're back to AI. Okay, are we now finished with AI, or is the
Oh,
whole show going to be about AI again?
no,
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 oh
no, no,
no.
it won't. But I wanted to ask you something because you're
Yeah.
trying to teach me a bit about editing for our show. I still haven't started, but I promise I will. You you talked
How
about.
can you teach someone that doesn't even want to start?
I want to start. Okay, it was
Okay.
the Christmas period. But you
Okay.
talked about video editing for a bit. Of course, you're the expert there. But we will have to consider audio editing for our audio podcast bit. And I've heard different people considering fillers when it comes to AI help. AI detects fillers very easily and can get rid of them, but it affects the natural rhythm of a conversation. And we are all about making mistakes and being natural. And I wonder what you think about that. What is going to be the trend for 2025? Polished, kind of BBC like conversations? Or do you
You
think it's
mean
going to be all
just
about fillers?
because of fillers?
For example, but other kinds of,
Oh,
natural speech
well, I'd
occurrences.
say that this AI assisted filler removal is already existent in some of the AI driven editing tools for video and audio, and it is existent for at least a year and a half. And I didn't see that much use of it because people see that it seems too unnatural. So I don't think that it's going to be used too much. At least now, not in some shows like this or podcasts. If you're doing some kind of a commercial or if you're creating some ad for social network, then of course every second counts because you need to have people there all the time and need to be as short as possible and as much content as possible in this shortest amount of time. So maybe this could be the case, but in some longer form content, no, I don't think it's going to be just removed all the time. Perhaps if you have, like at the start of our today's show, this awkward silence of like 3 or 4 seconds, perhaps this could have been cut out. But this except that, no, I think people are really starting to value the natural flow and people how they really are, the reality. So when you talk with other people, you do have fillers. It's not really just some speech that you've learned by heart and you can speak without any fillers. You need perhaps some people need it more, some less. I need quite a lot of it to think about what you're saying. So these fillers do this task, and it's a natural part of you. And it would be really unnatural to show yourself on video or in some kind of a live show. We did this cut out, and when you speak with other people, it's just and this is not really shown in the video. Then it really feels unnatural.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think the context is very important, isn't it? When we're talking about a conversation, we do need thinking time and we do need fillers. And I think that should be appreciated. Even silence. Perhaps we should all do a bit more of thinking before speaking in general. I don't think they should be vilified or seen as a negative thing. And as a language teacher, especially, I teach my students to use fillers because they're a good crutch sometimes to shape their thoughts in a situation that can be full of anxiety. Like, say, a job interview, for instance, since we mentioned that already. You want to give a good quality, relevant answer rather than let your anxiety let you speak very quickly, but perhaps in a way that's less refined or relevant to the situation.
Of course. And then you'll also appear very nervous if you speak quickly and have no pauses and anything. So, yeah, you should speak
Exactly.
how you are, but that is your part in speaking English. I'm not going to interfere with that.
You're doing it very well, so I think you
You're
can.
doing it anyway, so.
Anyway, prevent you anymore. You are unleashed.
Okay.
Well, I'm curious if you have anything outside of AI. Is there a big thing, something that you're really excited in the photography and videography world?
Uh, well, I'd say to continue on what I started talking, it's more of a realistic and lifestyle photography that's going to be used. So, real people, real situations. So, this is going to be seen more and more. Well, regarding to AI, which is too much perhaps stage and too much beautified. So this is a thing that I think is going to be in 2025 quite a big thing. And also in this more realistic, unperfect photography and videography, some trends with this, let's say, old processes, mistakes, like people see on film there are some color discoloration in some areas of photograph and similar. So some kind of a retro feel to the photographs and video. I'd say this is going to also be quite a big part in 2025. It started a couple of years ago, but now it's going to be really big, I'd say.
So we'll see more pimples and bad lighting like mine.
No, not exactly. How did you read this from my words?
My crystal ball told me. No,
Right,
not to
realistic
joke.
situation, like you being in a live show somewhere in your kitchen with your coffee and not in this space where you can't see anything. Something
Not in
like
my
this.
room, trying to get warm. Yeah,
Yeah,
I was joking, but I think
near the fireplace so you can be warm.
yes, I need a fireplace. That would be a good
Oh,
start.
okay.
But being real is important in education as well. Actually, it's something that, like AI, I think we share. It's been a very long process. This is not new, but in language education, we've been trying to focus on real life situations for our students for a long time now. But the sort of textbook fake dialogue, artificial acting kind of input, listening exercises with two British students who are actually just in a studio trying to act out a conversation. These sort of things are still clinging on in our industry. They're still surviving, even though for years now we've been trying to teach unplugged and to teach based on our students' experiences, real life experiences and real situation that they'll be in. So hopefully this trend will continue into 2025 and we'll actually see more teachers being real about what their students need. And it's not that sort of polished certain accent as well. It's something that's closer to a global English that's quite messy, very different. You know, mistakes are expected, and it's more about
So
navigating
we are
misunderstanding.
moving towards that pigeon English, right?
Not pidgin English, not pidgin
Oh,
English,
okay.
global English. And I think global English is, I think it's
Please do explain global English for me. I'm not really sure what it is.
it's not simplified English. It's English that accepts diversity. I think it's very important to see it as such. It's rich English that, you know, has the most words in the world, has the biggest vocabulary because it includes so many different influences. And for way too long, we've been focused on Britain and the US, we've ignored variety within Britain and US because we've been focused on like 1 to 5% of the speakers that are seen as a model. So we are encouraging diversity within that small space, but also, there's a lot of native speakers from, say, Australia that are being ignored, for instance, but also Nigeria. There's a lot of countries in this world where English is the official language. India, they speak with each
South
other in
Africa.
English. South Africa, many places today. And we can say that, I think even in Croatia, like it's sort of the official second language in a way. It's the language of business. It's the language that you're expected to speak. So if there's an influence
Perhaps if
from,
you're in IT, but I wouldn't say it's
in
really
some
expected.
industries, yeah, in some
Okay.
industries, we can talk about industry language, we can talk about dialect, we can talk about the language of internet, we can talk about the language of AI and the way AI is affecting the way we speak, and it's
No, we're
all
back to
connected.
AI again. Oh.
Yes, because we've mentioned it. That's English as a global language. It's used globally in a global context in many different ways. And this is the kind of diversity that as educators we need to not just accept, which a lot of people are not accepting yet and be aware of, but also to celebrate, because it means that we can be more creative than ever rather than trying to fit this mold that really isn't appropriate for most of the context that we do business in and that we communicate in. So being real in language education as well, not just in video and our audio presence.
Yeah. Okay. What do you think about audio and video presence? How is this going to look in 2025? Because I have my thoughts about it, and at least here in Europe, I can't say for US, where there is more where this is more native in, let's say, audio podcasts, but more and more content is published in podcasts, and what I see more and more is that people want to see video podcasts. Call it vlogs, call it whatever you want, YouTube channel videos, but most of content that I see is on video, and also from US I see more and more of it. The traditional audio podcasts start to publish additional video content while recording the audio podcast. So it seems, for me at least, that audio podcasts start to just fade out. Perhaps it's because of the quite a bigger technological advances. Internet is much faster these days than a couple of years ago. It's much cheaper, so it's no problem just to push video and ignore the visual part if you do not have time to look at it, but just listen to it. So it's still, as a possibility, have a visual part whenever you want to look at it. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that audio only might be phased out or might be rarer these days, but I don't think audio is endangered. I think that we'll have this added dimension, as you said, because why not? People maybe want to see that published video to make sure that you're a real person, for one, because back to AI, we can be less and less sure about who is actually doing the talking. So if you can see that it's an imperfect studio, that the person is, doing things that are not necessarily scripted, that their facial expressions match what they're saying, it could be kind of proof, okay, this is authentic. So I think for that reason alone, we have a very good reason to have the video published as well. So I think you're right. I think it's going to be expected in a way. I think it's going to be very
Yeah.
rare to only have the audio version. But at the same time, I think that people will still continue to listen to audio content. I speak from for myself because I like to multitask. I like to listen to things while I'm walking or commuting or whatever. So it's much easier than to focus on a visual. And again, because
Hmm.
we talked about the information overload, it's a bit lighter in that sense that you don't have to look at the people, but it's good to have that option, especially if maybe the topic is interesting and you want to see, how serious the people are or whatever visual cues you want to look at and read information from them.
Yes, and this is what I meant also. You can have a video turned on your mobile phone, just to listen while you're walking, and then you hear they're showing something on video. You just pop your phone out of your pocket. Oh, okay. Look at it for a couple of seconds, and just put it back in the pocket again. And you don't see the visual part. And I say it's more about longer form content like podcasts or things like this, live shows. We are what? Oh, we have already passed our 30-minute mark, so it's over for today. Bye bye. No,
So,
no, no, we're not finished. Okay, but other extreme, what I've seen is more and more video, at least, is starting to be without any sound.
okay.
So I don't know how this is going to turn out, at least for the speaking part, because short form videos is what's mostly viewed, and there are captions, of course. But even when there is sound, I think the current percentage of people who do see these short form videos with sound is something like around 10%. 90% of people just watch these short form videos without any sound. So they expect captions if there's some talking, but they just prefer to look at it and listen for the things that are going around them.
Yeah, I noticed that. I think the positive thing with that is that it's quite accessible. And I think that's another trend that we're trying to be inclusive and accessible, and that people with different impairments can also have a similar experience on social media. This is not the driving goal here, but it's something that's happening as a sort of
Yes.
side effect. And
Yeah,
I
I'd say
like
it's
that.
just side effect. It wasn't meant for this, but yeah, it's a side effect.
Unfortunately, yeah, it wasn't that mindful, but there are some people that are being mindful about it as well. I think it adds to that what we've mentioned about reading. People are reading more than ever, and this is adding to that. So we'll see more of that for sure. Um, I think that it's not a bad thing. I think that it means that there's more focus on content and what's actually being said. Because for me personally, and I don't know what people think about it, I don't know if that 90% of people that aren't listening to these short form videos is because there's a lot of annoying sound effects that have been popular in editing for a while, like music that is ever present, that becomes very irritating after a while, or I don't know, effects,
AI voices
AI voices,
also.
voiceovers that are they're very uncomfortable to listen to at this point. They probably will sound more realistic with time, but right now they're quite grating, and the rhythm is just off. So yeah, I
Hmm.
think people are reacting to it by saying, "Okay, I'll just read and I'll pick the main points that way." So I think we'll see more of that to come.
Yeah, perhaps. Perhaps there is a point also in detaching it from real words, so you just visuals and there is nothing to be heard. So this is not what is happening in real world. So perhaps we will see more and more those Chaplin type movies, silent ones, where there was no sound by the technical disabilities at that time. But we're going back to that retro mode.
Yeah, well, that's an interesting thought. It makes sense, I think, when it comes to the cycles of
Yeah,
technology. And
because they did also have some, because they couldn't just say anything in those movies. They also had some kind of a caption, so there was screen with some text on it, and the action would go on after it. And if there was something to be explained, there was also a screen with more text on it. So it seems similar to that.
yeah, yeah, I see your point. And again, I think, at least I see it within the educator community, which, it is a bit different. So I don't know how general I can be from what I've observed there. But with AI, again, with writing, a lot of the writing that we do, especially on social media, is done by AI because it's something that is rote. People don't have the time or the energy to do it. And I think it's more and more noticeable. And a lot of people in the educator community are trying to de-influence themselves in a way so that their students would have a good example. For instance, I've had to be creative lately to make my students write, not use AI or Google Translate for that. And I think us as educators have to be the first examples there and write with errors and from the heart and with a structure that's not, perfect and so forth, because it's becoming tiring. It has been efficient
Hmm.
for a while, but people are getting tired of it and they want to also read something authentic and something that isn't so polished or airbrushed
Yes,
in a way.
yes, of course. Would you say this could make an impact on English education,
Oh,
to have
absolutely.
more of a, to be more concentrated on writing? Because like you say, it's what did you say, international English? What did you say, how it's called?
International, global English is what I
Global
teach,
English. Okay,
at
global
least.
English. And the written part, I think it's not that much dependent on pronunciation. So even if you cannot understand directly what the other person is saying because of the accent, written part is much more global.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And this is where we're not talking about pronunciation, but we're talking about different communication styles, and we're talking about cultural awareness, sensitivity, and cultural literacy in a way. And these are definitely going to be trends in 2025 because we're not getting less globalized with the development of technology. On the contrary, people from different countries are connecting perhaps for the first time in 2025 in a way, and that they're going to have to be more aware of the way they present themselves. That's not about accuracy, because it's very easy to be accurate these days. Yes,
Hmm.
AI will also make mistakes, but maybe your English teacher will notice them, but most people won't. So we can say that we are at a high level of accuracy at this point, but the personal touch is missing. And this is something that we'll have to learn and relearn, I'd say, even because we are creating a bit of an impersonal culture these days. At least I see more AI generated messages in my inbox on LinkedIn, and I immediately lose interest. So this is something that will be important in language education, to teach people how to present themselves authentically in written form as well. And then the accuracy can come afterwards, right? We can check these things like we used to make our students use a spelling checker as a minimum. I think some people are still behind on that trend, and I'm very much
I'm guilty
okay
of
with
that.
that, depending on the context. But there are situations where it's quite important to be accurate. But in most situations nowadays, when it comes to connecting, especially from a perspective of teacher for entrepreneurs, where you have to network in an authentic way to get clients, I think, yeah, this finding your voice that isn't necessarily accurate but is yours will be extremely important.
Yeah, so maybe an idea for a new English course: how not to sound as AI.
Not the sound as AI. Yeah, I like that. I'm writing it
and
down.
still grammatically correct.
At least mostly grammatically correct, without very
Mostly.
embarrassing situations that can change the meaning. This is where
Yes.
the fun happens.
Okay. Do we have anything else that is visible in your crystal balls? Because this is all I had.
Oh, really? Okay. Because
Yeah.
in preparation for this show, I just sat down to write down whatever was in my head as I thought
Okay.
would help
You
crystal
didn't
balls.
talk to your friend AI.
Uh, I asked AI as well, but I didn't
Ah.
like the answers. To be honest, I
Oh.
don't think they were particularly inspiring. One of the answers that I read that I know nothing about, since I'm not in the classroom environment, so I'm not sure if there's any truth in it. Different sources, different AI, because I wanted to compare and see, okay, what does the AI future look like? In all of the outputs, I saw virtual reality as being a thing in education.
Okay.
I don't personally see it. I think it's a very clumsy technology still. I think there's potential there, but I don't know what's happening in classrooms, whether it's being added in the repertoire. I'm curious about it, but I'm not sure.
So not online virtual reality, but you get in a classroom, you learn, and then you put your VR goggles on. Why?
Um, the idea
Okay.
is to
Okay.
simulate real life situations, I would guess, and there's logic in that. I don't see a problem with learners trying to do real life tasks that maybe they don't have the equipment for, or whatever other reason that they can't do it in reality. I think that's a great idea, but I don't see that being a major thing in 2025 because we're behind on very basic things that, perhaps like a lot of educators have been saying for years, if you're trying to teach a child how to do something with their hands, perhaps a piece of wood and a very rudimentary tool like they do in countries that have a very high level of education would be very good for the kids. So I think we should start giving them more tactile awareness and more real life situations before we invest into VR technology. I see it as a bit of an extra on a very luxury level that we are not really
Might be.
prepared
Might be.
for.
But okay, this is what AI proposed. What are your thoughts?
Well, I see sustainability being a major theme. We talked about global warming at the beginning of this session in our prep. So, being more
Okay.
sustainable with our
Explain this to me in teaching English.
um, ecology and sustainability as a topic
Oh.
in our
Oh.
English lessons is a major, major theme. It has been for a while because it's relevant to all industries. So, if we're talking about business English, for instance, even in bit more traditional textbooks, let's say, it's becoming a unit on its own. So this is definitely something that we'll continue discussing into the future. The value of community is also another one, and different ways of finding community within an educational context, but I think within all contexts, that's also a big one. It's been one of those things that I've been trying to get my students to recognize for their learning, not just group sessions, but
Mhm.
also trying to find communities online that reflect their values, so that they have a reason to do something, be it a book club, a movie club, whatever they're interested in, or as part of their business or a business community, so that they are motivated to actually share ideas and learn, because
Yeah, and
again,
it's
it's
much
real.
lighter to be done globally now.
Yes, much easier. And
Easier.
I'd say it's even becoming a very important to be able to discern what a good community is, because there's been a very big proliferation of those, so it can be overwhelming to find, to test it all out, but it's very important. And learning how to build communities, I think, is going to be a big theme for educators as well. our own little circles and how to maintain them and make sure that they are interactive and engaging and that they're honest and authentic and so forth.
Do you see educators working on it already?
Yes, yes,
Creating
I do.
communities, maintaining. Yeah.
I do. I do. I see that there's a lot of testing going on. I see a lot of mistakes and failed projects and dead Facebook groups and so forth. But we're trying, and when it happens and when it's successful, I think this is where all the magic happens. This is where all the ideas are built and exchanged, and this is where we'll see those trends being built actually and sustained. So it's quite exciting. I think everyone should be looking for a community for them at this point.
Yeah, great.
I wish we had our own community because no one's in the chat today. I wonder what's happening, if they're still kind of in the holiday mood and not willing to to engage. What do you think?
We have a
What does your
two-person
crystal ball
community,
say?
so it's better than one.
For sure, for sure. It's a good place to thank you for making me do this in 2024. It's always good to exchange ideas with you because I think we come from two rather different perspectives. So it's always good to hear your thoughts on things. As an English
Thank you.
user and an educator of your own, what do you see in education? I'm curious about what do you see as an observer?
I don't know. Still stunned by the word English user.
Um, a speaker of English. I
Okay,
say
no.
user. I say user because it's
I
also
think I like
writing
it.
and
I'm an
listening.
English user. Okay, what was the question again?
What do you see as a trend in the education space as a user of English? Perhaps, amongst us English teachers, because you've also built a sort of community with English teachers in a way through this podcast. And in
Hmm.
education in general, as somebody who teaches people how to appear on camera.
Wait, I'm still on that English user.
Oh, come on.
I say I'm not really sure globally, but at least in a more technically advanced community, communities like IT and industries like IT and such, fintech, for example. Yes, English is used more and more. In IT, it's used since forever, but I see it more broadly used at the moment. So this trend will kind of just evolve more. What I would say as an English user.
Lovely, lovely. I personally see a lot of my English students being more focused, or at least we're trying to get them to be more focused. But I think they're also being aware of the fact that soft skills are what's really important at this point for entrepreneurs and freelancers, especially because they have to build connections, as we said. So things like small talk, I bet in the IT industry, there's a need to brush up on things like that. Do you see that?
No, not really.
Not
No.
really. Who
You
cares?
just start talking about frameworks and the protocols, and no problem.
Okay. Or
No
foods.
point in talking about weather or whatever small talk. What kind of a small talk topics are there except weather?
Food, obviously. Food is.
Oh, food. Oh, okay.
You're not the
So
only
we could
person
talk
that gets
about
to
food.
smile on their face when food is being mentioned. There's quite a few, so it's a good choice.
Okay. Yeah, we can talk about food right now also.
Oh, you want to talk about food? Okay. What are you
Yeah.
having for lunch?
No, I was just thinking about the trends in 2025. I'd say it's going to be more global. Like even if at the moment the pizza is so global accepted everywhere, some additional food will get accepted. I'm not really sure which one, but I think it's going to be much more broadly accepted, like these Dubai chocolate. Did you hear about that? So
I
it
was
seems to
very
be a
late
global
on
trend.
hearing about that. To be honest, I was quite surprised when it started popping up. But yeah, I think you're right. I think we will be
Yeah,
talking about food internationally and about fusion cuisine, perhaps um, trying to combine different cuisines in a way that's interesting or globally acceptable, for sure. Yeah, it's
yeah,
been
but
happening for a while now.
okay, we'll see.
I think it's part of intercultural competence because it's such a major part of our lives. So, learning about other people's cuisines, what's important for a culture, so that you start off with small talk in a nice way so that you know how to act in a restaurant or cafe environment when you're in a different country or with somebody from a different country. That's not going to become less relevant. It is going to be more and more relevant. And I think if we're talking about food specifically, now that you mentioned it, I think ex- we're all kind of hmm, we are all trying to learn more about each other's cuisines, but we are also part of our intercultural competence is knowing what's being eaten in different countries. I think people
And even
expect
what's
from us
forbidden.
what's forbidden. Yes, it's more and
Yeah.
more expected from you to know what the other person should or shouldn't eat, or what's famous in their country, or what's something that's very popular, things like that. So it's not going to stop being a topic in English lessons either, for sure.
Okay. So I learned something new today. So small talk could be started with food.
Are
Okay.
you telling me you
Okay.
haven't been doing that for ages now, that food hasn't been your go-to topic with people?
It was, but I didn't expect it to be so globally accepted. It was just something I'm interested about food. This is what I eat today. This is what I'm going to eat, and people seem to have been interested. I thought perhaps they were being bored by it, but
Food is never
never
boring.
mind. What is the next trend for 2025 in your crystal balls?
What else do I have written down here that
Oh,
we haven't
we
mentioned?
are
Oh,
we are on item 10 of 54 items totally.
yes, yes, indeed. But what I put in big letters that I wanted to mention is actually educators going independent. I think that's going to continue even more
Okay.
because educational systems aren't supporting us enough. There's been a trend for years now of educators leaving systems and going freelance and starting their own little businesses. And I think that's going to continue. And I think that's quite exciting because we are going to be the trendsetters in the future. And it's good
Okay.
because
When you
schools,
say that formal education will not be as respected as the knowledge itself.
I think it's already the situation. Of course, when we talk about formal education, there are different layers and degrees, and it varies. There are still elite schools, right? And those places where we learn that don't even have any positive reputation these days because of all the violence happening. I think we're moving in a very negative direction when it comes to like general formal education. And what educators have been talking about for ages now, I think since the beginnings of formal education, when you look at the history books, is being heard more. And I like that. I like that there are more choices for people to learn in their own way. But I'm also a bit afraid because not everyone has that choice to have their own tutor or to have their own way of learning. So the formal education has to really has to provide opportunities for better quality of learning. And I really do hope that we will be seen as examples and emulated in the sense of personalization and also social emotional learning and seeing the person in a holistic manner and respecting the students' needs. I do hope that we'll get closer to that. I don't know how optimistic I am in general, but I do have hope. What about you?
I'm not an educator. I'm just asking you.
You must have an
So
opinion. Everyone has an opinion on education. It's one of those things like food.
no, not everyone has an opinion on food. I hate it when people come to the restaurant and say, "Oh, whatever." You
Oh,
can't
this is
have.
what you mean. Well, not
Well,
everyone is aware of their opinions. It's like, I studied philosophy and people talk badly about philosophy in Croatia, for instance. It's like if you're philosophizing, you're saying nonsense, not to use a worse word. But it doesn't mean that people don't have philosophically informed opinions. They just might not know what they
they're
are.
not that strong of opinions then, but okay.
Yes, or they might be very strong, but again, they're not identified as what they are. They maybe they're just cold emotions, but nobody knows what they're tied to until the person starts uncovering it in a indirect manner. So I think it's similar when it comes to education because we are all part of it. We're all learning all the time. So we have an approach. We know what we like or we know what we expect, but we don't necessarily formalize it in our thoughts.
Okay.
So
If this helps, then as an English user and educational education user, client, whatever,
and provider.
what do I provide? Okay, I'd say I'd rather choose myself from whom I would learn and what I would learn than directly set by someone up there in this formal kind of education. So this is my opinion. So yes, most of the education that I had later in my life was because I've chosen to learn something that was interesting to me, and also
Mhm.
from the person who seemed to have known something about it more than others, and not just by some degree that was awarded by some other institution. Let's say it this way.
Okay, so you are confirming this trend that there will be more independent educators because there's a need for it and an interest.
Whatever you say.
Okay, fair enough, fair enough. Let's leave it at that.
I'm confirming it as an English user. Yes, I do.
And provider, you're also teaching people.
English provider. Okay. Whatever that should mean, but
Not an English provider, but education provider.
our education provider.
Yes, we have a guest next week who I've helped with English, but you've helped her with video content as an
Yes.
educator as well. So I think we'll get that confirmation
And I'm
soon.
excited to see how you help her in English because I know she'll be brilliant in video.
Yes, I know as well. I'm very
Yes.
excited about it.
That is all you have to say. Yes.
Yes, we'll see. It's a teaser. We
Oh,
don't
we'll
have
see.
to
Okay.
say much because she'll show it herself.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. As we are on item 11, how much do we still have predictions for this 2025?
I think we should wrap it up because
No,
we've been
nothing more really bold than with big letters there.
there's quite a few things that I've written down from the perspective of an English teacher,
Okay, a last
but
thing. Okay, come on,
but
there must be something really important still.
abandoning textbooks, for instance, it's a
Oh,
trend
we're going
again.
the same route then.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
they're task based learning and project based learning trends that are appearing. That's one of my notes, and dogme and different kinds of trends in ELT, but it all revolves around what we've already talked about. That's more important as a general theme, and that's realness and actually real student needs, whatever they are and however specific they are. And even though I really do respect good textbook writers, and in our industry, there are quite a few that really try to make it up to date and use those topics that are relevant, like we talked about sustainability. I think it's very positive that we're turning to a more unplugged approach where textbooks can be an inspiration and we can use certain bits and bobs, of course, and those texts that are graded and good questions and so forth. But generally speaking, teachers having more confidence in their pedagogical abilities and using their knowledge to actually create something authentic, which is being recognized by students as well and being tested, because that can go wrong as well. So hopefully continuous professional development and actually building on our knowledge as well is going to continue being a trend. But I feel that it's always been amongst educators. We just want to learn more. So I think that's a positive thing to remain.
Yeah, I would say also with this just textbooks, they are they might be too general and too broad, as in one size fits all. And like you said, individualization of education should be more of a trend, or will be more of a trend, where you just adjust to the person and their needs and their problems, and not just take everybody as the same.
Exactly, not this generic approach, especially not the approach, hopefully, that will really fall out of fashion of that, just ticking the boxes, exercise A, exercise B, exercise C, and so forth. I think that should be rooted out. And I
Yeah.
see it happening. Maybe my circle of people is in a different timeline than a lot of the world. Again, I'm outside of the formal education system, so I don't know what exactly is happening there. I do remember, even from my time of training in Croatia, that English learning instruction was a bit ahead of its time when it comes to comparing it to other subjects. So I'm optimistic about my area of expertise, at least in that sense.
Okay.
What is your
Okay,
experience?
we're
I'm
already
curious.
for an hour here.
I
What
know,
experience did you what?
with English language education in school, within the formal system, how was that for you?
I didn't have an English education as formal thing in my
Ah.
school. I learned German
Hmm.
in my formal education, and I was arguing with my teacher, who was at the time, I don't know, like 60, 70-year old older woman. And I was watching a lot of TV in German during that time, because we had signal from the Austrian TV, and most of the things I started saying as figure of speech, she said, no, this isn't right, it shouldn't be said like this, nobody in German said that.
Hmm.
And it it was, as with this German Hochdeutsch, it wasn't just the thing that they said this, but in the normal language they did talk that way. So I'd say it's similar with English, yeah.
Hmm. Okay, so you've had that experience as well of non-existent polished language that really belongs into
Yeah, and
high academic world
what was
only.
learned in school, in formal education, was this polished that no one actually uses in the street.
Okay. Well, that shows that most language education is similar then, probably. So it's
No.
something to move away from. Okay.
Okay. Should we wrap it up?
Yes.
Oh, yes. Okay. From everything I've heard from you and from, I'd say, what I did have to say, which was not much, I'd say for 2025, be it in English as an English user or in photography, realism, being an individual are the most things that will prevail in 2025.
Let's hope so.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, everyone,
Okay.
for
You're not going to
listening.
say
If you're
anything
there,
about AI? Okay.
no, no, I'm done. I'm done. AI is no longer a 2025 thing. We'll keep it in the background. Let's stick to realness and authenticity, and whatever technology we use as a help in our way shouldn't
Yeah.
be the
It's
focus.
just a tool.
That's it. Okay. It was nice talking to you today. Looking forward to another guest next week, and I hope there'll be more interaction. Whoever you are in the background listening, thank you for being here, and I hope that you'll have more to say next time.
Uh, I'm also thanking you for such an interesting conversation, and our viewers that they seem to be absolutely shocked by our predictions. So they need to process it till the next weeks to have any comment on it. I'm sure about that. So see you all, and